You are listening to Unified Through Chronic and Mental Illness with your hosts, Angie Roberts and Kimberly Murphy. Please be advised that some of the topics of this podcast can be triggering and sensitive in nature.
The Cleveland Clinic says as many as 50 to 75% of new mothers experience a shift in their emotions called the baby blues after delivery. Up to 15% of these women will develop a more severe or longer lasting depression called postpartum depression after delivery.
Hey, Spoonies and mental health warriors. Welcome to another episode of Unified. I'm Kimberly Murphy here with Angie Roberts.
Hey, y'all.
And today we're talking about postpartum depression, issues surrounding it. I know that everybody has different opinions. Unless you know somebody who's gone through it yourself, you might think of like Andrea Yates, who completely lost her mind and these horrible things happen. But a lot of people don't talk about what the depression is actually like. So what are your thoughts on that, Angie?
Kimberly, I remember when I had Jacob, it was powerful emotions. You know, you got all those hormones going and everything, and you're excited and you're happy and you're scared and you're fearful. Right. You don't know what's going on. And but a lot of people don't realize that the birth of a baby can cause depression, and it can cause kind of an umbrella of postpartum issues, actually. You know, can cause just the baby blues or postpartum depression, postpartum psychosis, postpartum OCD. So there's a lot more than I thought when I started researching this to this umbrella of actual postpartum depression issues.
Right, because I think most people just think of the baby blues and, oh, well, you're really tired and you know what I mean? Like
right.
every woman gets a little, down afterwards, but it can get to be a real issue. And it can last for quite a while as well, right?
Well, the Mayo Clinic says the baby blues happen to most women and start 2 or 3 days after birth and last only up to 2 weeks. Mood swings, anxiety, irritability, overwhelmed, crying, and appetite issues.
So appetite issues could be probably either way.
Yeah, and you're gonna experience a lot of this anyway because you're having hormones. So,
right,
if it says 2 to 3 days after birth to lasting 2 weeks. Now, if it starts to last 2 weeks, if it starts to last longer than 2 weeks, now you have went over into postpartum depression, and things are going to be different.
And if that isn't attended to, that could progress as well into these other issues we're going to talk about. Okay. What are the basics about postpartum depression? What are some of the, general things that we can expect to see?
Well, it's a long-lasting depression, so it doesn't just go away, right away. Mm-hmm. It can last from a few weeks up to a year.
Which is a long time.
It is a long time, right? And after that, it can turn into more than just postpartum depression. It can turn into just regular depression, or it rarely leads to the psychosis part. Mm-hmm. But it seems to be unclear if that's true or not. So the exact cause seems to be unclear, believed to be a combo of physical, emotional, genetics, and social factors. So a couple of those could, cause you to have PPD.
But genetics is interesting to me for something like PPD.
Right.
It makes sense, though, actually.
I thought social factors was interesting.
Yeah. Like what kind of social factors did they mean?
Yeah, things such as stress and
I would imagine like relationships could, like if your relationship has a lot of stress in it.
Right. I think if you have isolation, if you're isolated, like not a lot of people around you.
That makes sense too, without having help.
Right. And maybe your environment.
Mm-hmm. Lack of money and resources can probably cause that too. Yeah. And it's sad.
It is sad.
I'm so glad that we have programs that are popping up that help women like this. Thank goodness, because isolation with a new baby for anybody is not good.
I didn't have a whole lot of help, so
Mm-hmm.
I totally get that one. So,
Mm-hmm.
also, you can have a whole lot of you have a whole lot of hormone changes during pregnancy, so this can also be a factor. Low thyroid levels can be a factor. Two of the biggest common risk factors are current abuse and prenatal, before pregnancy, depression. So if you were depressed, you had depression beforehand, like I
Right.
did,
Mm-hmm.
they told me that, you're higher risk for PPD or
Right.
postpartum depression.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a lack of social support, which is also probably some of the social factors here,
Right.
current or past abuse, high levels of stress.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Um,
That makes sense. It's hard to have a baby in an abusive situation and feel stuck and scared.
I can't even imagine that. That would be
Right.
crazy.
Right. Exactly. Um, the hormone thing is interesting because for me personally speaking, I'm the complete opposite. Like I was so happy and normal and I hate the word normal. I was so happy and just balanced and stuff like that.
Right. I was
So
not.
really, how is it? How is it for you? Like, what'd you go through when you were
Well,
pregnant?
I'm a single mom, so I was by myself and it was just crazy. I mean,
Hmm.
I'm still a single mom and I'm by myself and it's crazy. But his dad does help out though.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Shout
good.
out to him.
That's good. Yeah.
um, it was hard though. Just I had a lot of fearful thoughts about I was really fearful at first about Jacob, um, something that would happen to Jacob, which is they kind of call that postpartum OCD,
Hmm.
is where you're really totally terrified that something is going to happen to your child. You're very hovering over them,
Helicopter.
especially,
Yeah.
yeah, especially, right when they're an infant and you're just always scared something is going to happen to them.
Hmm.
So, that's, um,
When I
it
had my
says,
first son, I went through that too, so I can really relate to that. And it was really hard for me to sleep at night because I was so fearful something would happen while I was sleeping.
right.
So I can relate to that. And I would check the windows and the doors because when you're a single mother, it's kind of
Hmm.
scary. Yeah, it can be scary.
So there are a lot of symptoms for PPD. So I'm going to try to go over them quickly, and don't get lost here because if you just had a baby or know somebody who just had a baby, this is very important for you to know so that you can watch out for these symptoms. Okay,
Hmm.
so depressed and severe mood swings, intense, irritable, or anger. So um, you can. That's easy to see, I think. You
Explosive
know,
behavior. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Totally irritated all the time, just
Hmm.
mad. You know, excessive crying is another one. Um, this one, difficulty bonding with the baby is a big one.
That is a
That's
big one.
it's kind of a telltale. I didn't have problems bonding with Jacob, so they were kind of like not sure if I was having postpartum or it was so crazy. I don't know.
But I mean, this
Because I
happens
already
to
have
some
mental
women.
issues, so
Yeah. And like
and I
this
was on
happens.
medicated. So yeah,
Mhm.
it's serious. Yeah. And
And then people get scared because they may not want to admit that they're feeling that way about
absolutely because
being a
people don't
mom.
understand. Yeah.
Hmm. Oh,
Okay, so also withdrawing from people, withdrawing from the world, withdrawing from the things you like,
hmm.
insomnia or sleeping too much. They might have overwhelming fatigue. Now, of course, a mom is going to have overwhelming fatigue for the first
Yeah,
year, but you've
absolutely.
got to watch and for it's not just that symptom. It's going to be a variety of these symptoms. So
Right.
it's a
You
good
may
thing to
have a
watch
few,
out
you
for.
may have, there may be others as well, but these are like the
Right,
general idea. Yeah.
right. Feelings of worthlessness, shame, or guilt.
And I
It's so
think that's
sad. I
the
hate
thing right
that.
there where they're like, I'm not supposed to feel this way. Why do I feel this way? I must be a horrible
Right.
mother.
Yeah,
So,
I
yeah.
was kind of like that.
Mhm.
So I don't know if I had it or not, but
It sounds like you may have, yeah.
yeah, if not, I had plenty of symptoms.
Right. Right.
So, decreased ability to think clearly or concentrate.
No, geez, we know about that one.
Right. And they call that mommy brain, but mommy
Mhm.
brain is real, obviously.
Right.
So um, don't take that away from yourself.
Mhm.
Don't be so hard on yourself if you have a hard time thinking clearly. The first time I left my house without Jacob, I locked my keys in my house. So
Oh no. My gosh. Yeah, I would have
yeah,
panicked.
right. I was like, well, thank goodness I didn't lock the baby in the house. So
That's true, right? Exactly.
right. They also experience restlessness. So if they're pacing a lot, rubbing their hands together,
Mhm.
severe anxiety and panic attacks, thoughts of
Which
harming. Yeah, go ahead.
um which can look different on the outside. Severe anxiety, they might just express it in different ways. What ways do people express anxiety, or how can we tell that someone is having a panic attack?
Well, I think the difference in severe anxiety and a panic attack is you can kind of hide the anxiety, except for maybe wringing your hands or tapping your toes, or maybe your legs are shaking or something. A
Hmm.
panic attack is the hyperventilation, your chest is hurting. You definitely can tell that they are having a really hard time, a difficult time. They're,
Right.
they can barely breathe, they're crying, everything is just out of control and overwhelmed. So I think that would be the difference
Okay.
between those two.
I think that's helpful for people who might know a new young mother who's, maybe withdrawing a little bit and they're wondering what's going on. This is something they can look for as well.
Definitely.
Hmm.
If they have thoughts of harming themselves or their baby, that's, another telltale that they need to get help
Immediately.
immediately. And the reoccurring thoughts of death or suicide. So if this is a treatable disease or illness, excuse me, it's a treatable illness. You just have to get to the doctor and get on the right medications to get through it. It really,
And don't worry about I know that a lot of women have a fear of losing their baby. They don't want to take your baby from you. They want to make it so that you can have a good relationship with your baby and make you feel better. So, and the better
right.
you are, the better off your child is. So, of course, they want to help you get to that point where you're
Yeah,
an independent mom.
let me jump in here and say, like, I've even been to the mental hospital and still kept my baby, not in the mental hospital with me, but as long as you have somebody to care for your baby, they say they see you as getting treatment as you being a good mother and going, helping yourself so that you're helping your child. They don't see that
Absolutely.
as a flaw.
Right.
So if you thinking that, please don't think that. Please know that they want you to get the help and they're there to make sure that you don't, lose
Hmm.
your baby or something
Right. I
bad
mean,
happens.
and I can understand why some women are worried about that. Their feelings are valid,
Absolutely.
but that is absolutely not the goal. So please do not be
Right.
afraid to get help.
I was scared when I
Hmm.
went in,
I
but
bet. Yeah, that is
yeah,
scary, but you should be proud of yourself for taking that step.
I am. I'm just glad that I went in and got the help.
Yes, absolutely.
So we touched a little on postpartum OCD, and I just wanted to say it's characterized by intrusive thoughts and behaviors that are in response to a perceived danger towards their baby. So these intrusive thoughts are things that they can't help but think.
Hmm.
And the behaviors are things they can't really help but do, like checking on their baby constantly, constantly. The thoughts and behaviors are constant and repetitive, and they are severely disrupt the daily life. I mean, it's constantly checking and
Right.
hovering over
That's
your
the
child,
obsession and the
right?
compulsion. Right. Hmm.
Right. So the risk factors are personal or family history of anxiety or OCD. And this definitely is treatable with professional help, just like all the postpartum illnesses are. So when we're talking about these, just keep in mind that this stuff is very treatable, and
Yeah,
it's
and you
not
don't have to,
curable, but it is treatable.
right, and you don't have to worry about people saying that you don't have an illness or something, that it's all in your head, or just get over it. This is the
Right.
way you're supposed to feel about your baby. Just all of those little thoughts, intrusive thoughts. It's not true, and you absolutely have a world of resources at your disposal to make
Yes.
things much better for you and your child.
So the last postpartum thing that we're going to talk about is postpartum psychosis, a rare condition that happens to 1 in 1,000 mothers. It develops in the first week and it can last for a very long time.
But it's strange. Like, to me, 1 in 1,000 mothers actually seems like a
It
lot.
doesn't seem rare.
No,
I don't.
when
That's
you
a
when you
lot.
look at the big picture, that kind of seems like a lot. But
Right.
mhm.
Yeah, definitely. I think so too, but I was just writing down what they told me at the Mayo Clinic.
The Mayo Clinic thinks it's very rare. So, what kind of symptoms can you look for in yourself or other people?
Okay. This is most likely you're going to see this. Somebody else is going to see this in you. You might feel a little off and not for sure what's going on at first, because you may feel confusion and disorientation. And you know, if you realize that you're doing that, maybe you should go ahead and go into the doctor, especially within that first week, because it's a beginning sign. But if when you start having obsessive thoughts about your baby, and then this goes on into hallucinations and delusions, you have sleep disturbances, excessive energy and agitation, um, paranoia and attempts to harm yourself or your baby, and strange beliefs.
Which
Such
probably won't be
as,
strange to you, but yeah.
well, I think part of the strange beliefs are, well, if we all need to die together, or some things like that. Like, if I want my kids to go to heaven, then this is what has to happen. Or
Right, which was
those kind of come with the delusions,
mhm.
that they're having in their mind.
Right, but to them, they don't believe it's strange, of course.
Oh, definitely not. They don't
Yeah.
believe that it's strange at all.
This
It's
whole
just
thing reminds me of Andrea Yates. We talked about her in a previous season.
right.
This describes her completely, and she actually tried to get help.
Yeah.
When she was in the right orientation and understood what was happening, she was like, I need help. Somebody please help me. She did go out of the hospital a few times with new medications, but we all know how that tragic story ended with
Yeah.
her actually taking the lives of her 5 children.
Sadly.
Yeah,
And
and
it's so sad because she tried to get help,
yeah, and
and people really
she,
crucify her sometimes.
well,
So,
yeah,
and it's like,
of course, but at the same time, people need to realize that she really wasn't in her right mind at the time, which
she
is,
wasn't.
and they did eventually say that she was innocent due to, she used the insanity plea. That's what happened, and they sent her to a mental hospital rather than send her to prison.
Which she needs
However,
to
she
be.
watches
Yeah.
those videos every day of her kids and cries.
Oh.
Yeah, I agree. She needs to be there too. Absolutely.
Yeah, instead of a prison,
hmm
because
Yep.
a lot a lot of people need to be in the mental hospital rather than a prison, but that's a
If
whole
you,
nother
and
podcast.
here's another thing, whoever's watching, if they're interested in stuff like this, watch previous interviews of Andrea when she was just so straight and narrow, almost to a point where it seemed like she was, kind of over medicated. And then
Mhm.
they take her off the medication, and in court, she's completely just a completely different person. And that's what actually got her the insanity defense because they could see what kind of person she was when she was not on her meds. Completely different person.
Right.
Mhm.
I wonder, was she bipolar?
I mean, no, but bipolar one with psychotic features, I could definitely see some of the same symptoms here and behaviors.
Right.
But she had postpartum psychosis with schizophrenia from what I
Uh,
have read. So she had beliefs that if she did not kill her children, they would not go to heaven. So that
right.
fits what you were saying too about the strange beliefs.
Right. And the reason I asked was the risk factors is there's one risk factor really. It's personal or family history. Oh, two, excuse me. Personal or family history of bipolar or a previous psychotic episode.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's very small risk factors. And I really want to push this. 5% of these people, just 5%, is a suicidal rate, and 4% is infant suicide. So just because somebody has postpartum psychosis does not mean that they are going to kill themselves or their children. This is a very treatable disease, also.
They
It's
most likely won't do it. They most likely will
right.
not do it.
It's very important to know that most postpartum psychosis
Right.
survivors never experience delusions
Hmm.
containing violent commands. It's temporary and treatable, as all postpartum diagnoses are.
And I think it's important
So,
too for people to realize that it's it's something serious that they should act on to get help with right away.
definitely.
Even though it's that small percentage, you definitely want to get help
Don't
right
take any
away.
risks.
Don't,
I
yeah,
wouldn't take any risks at all. Um, because you never know.
right,
It's
exactly.
not something that you can control. So it's not something that you'd be like, oh, okay, well, I'm
Hmm.
just not gonna have hallucinations. It just happens. So
Exactly,
yeah, and
exactly.
then
And
it's understandable.
Andrea obviously had a family. She had people around her. She had a husband. She had a mother-in-law that used to come in and be with her every day. She was in a community where people knew her because she used to be a nurse. So there's a whole community watching this happen. So it just goes to show that if you were ever at the point where you're like, I need to get help and nobody's doing anything for you, just call an emergency number and ask for the crisis helpline and then go from there. Do not give up on yourself. You
No.
know what's right. You know what you have to do.
Keep going from doctor to doctor, hospital to hospital, whatever
Mhm,
you got to do.
right. Do not depend on, because family means well, but a lot of them will just be like, well, you've got the baby blues. You're just tired. She just needs some rest. She's hallucinating because she's sleep deprived. There's all these things
Hmm.
that people can say. So if you're feeling like this at all, just, you know, we're going to give some numbers at the end of this podcast. So, and some ways for you to get somebody to help you if you're in this situation.
Right. Yes, please. Please reach out to new moms and make sure they're okay. Uh, just keep an eye on them and
Absolutely. And a lot of people say, what can I do for you? Instead of asking, what can I do for you? Offer help, offer real legitimate help. Say, can I get you some diapers? Can I take your child for a couple hours so you can take a nap? Things like that. Because nobody wants to nobody wants to say, I want you to come over and babysit, but that might be exactly what they need. So let them know that you're willing to do those things for them and show up and just help out. It's really hard to be a single parent. And this is for single dads too. They need the help as well.
oh, definitely. Dads can get postpartum too. So they can actually get
Interesting.
postpartum
Okay.
too. They get some of the symptoms of postpartum. And so watch for that too in men.
Right.
Um, it's interesting.
I mean, it makes sense because hormones are not necessarily the only thing that.
That is leads to that, yeah, with all the exhaustion, and they have other, the outside stressors really make, I think, a big deal for the men, like
Mhm.
having to think about, okay, I have a new baby and I got work and I got my wife and I got this and I got
Mhm.
this and bills and
All these
rent, you know,
expectations. Yeah.
all these expectations for me to be the perfect father and all this. And now I got a crying child all the time. And what am I doing? I'm not sleeping. And, they're not sleeping either. So,
Right. Exactly. No, it's
so,
true. And then with the
yeah,
men, it's like usually too, they really miss their relationship that they
right,
had. And I imagine, and that's when they're with their partner still. I
right,
imagine that if somebody broke up and you were a single dad, that would be especially hard because it does seem like they really do bond with the mothers of their children. I mean,
right.
from what I've seen, the single dads that I know it's very hard for them. So I applaud them because it is hard for them.
I,
They have to
I
juggle a lot
agree.
too.
The
Yeah.
single dads I know, shout out to y'all because
Hmm.
I know
Yep.
that y'all have a hard time. So if you ever need some support and you're not exactly sure where to turn, you can call the Postpartum Support International Hotline at 1-800-944-4773. If you're feeling overwhelmed or suicidal, or you just are having thoughts, you need someone to talk to, you're getting depressed, the National Suicide Prevention Line is wonderful. You can call them at 1-800-273-8255. But this is what I love. You can also text HELP to 741-741, and somebody will text you back. You don't even have to talk to them. You can actually just text, and that's a big thing now in the texting world.
Hmm. And don't forget to keep that line of communication open with your doctor, especially if
Absolutely.
you have any chronic physical illnesses, because all of these things, as you know, are entwined. One thing happens and it'll flare up something else. So make sure that you keep your doctor informed of everything that's going on with you as you go through new motherhood.
Definitely. And definitely, if you have had depression issues in the past, um you let your OB/GYN know, and make sure your psych knows that you're pregnant, and let everybody know what's going on, kind of keep everybody in the loop. But definitely, on top of your site knowing, let your OB/GYN know, because they will also keep an eye on you when you come to appointments and such things like that.
Right. Currently
They
I'm
used
thinking about all these women who have lupus and they have babies, or, autoimmune
right,
diseases. And, it makes me really curious to know if the depression in that group is, I want to say,
greater.
greater. Yeah, because
Yeah,
a lot of those illnesses have chronic depression as part of it. So I'm curious to know how those women tend to do. And we do have a group coming on soon who are going
yay.
to share some stories with us. So we'll have to ask them that, because that's a really good question as far as like women who are already chronically ill and then all of a sudden depression becomes this big issue.
Right.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what they say.
Absolutely. So what is the mantra for this week, Angie?
The mantra is, you can be a mess and still be a good mom. We are allowed to be both.
Now, how many
So
times do you
true.
wish you could hear that?
Every day. Can somebody just call me and tell me that? Maybe 12 times a day.
We'll do a buddy system. We'll sign everybody up.
Right.
Everyone will have a buddy and you can
A
call each
calling tree.
other. Yes. Wouldn't that be nice? I think new
Right.
moms need to hear this. Every mom needs to hear this
Right.
every day. This is
Every day.
hard.
It
Yeah.
is. And dads too. You can still
Yes,
be a mess and be a good dad.
it's
Joking.
true. We hope that you enjoyed this week's episode. And if you did get something out of it, please like, share, follow, or subscribe. All of our social media information will be announced in just a moment. Please join us next week for a brand new episode. You don't want to miss it. Until then, please remember that we're stronger together. And thank you so much for listening.
Mask up, guys. Peace out.
Unified through chronic and mental illness can be found at anchor.fm/unified. There you can find all social media links as well as other ways to listen.